It's a big birthday for us this week. It's volume 30 of... Is it a volume? I don't know. It's an episode. Every episode is an episode. Welcome, anyway, to the Comedy Slab, number 30. I'm Adrian Lacey in Kent, in South East England. He is Shane O'Connor in the West Midlands, shamelessly going, all right, self-parodying. And this week we are mostly reviewing, indeed uniquely reviewing, Bleak Expectations, which, as the name implies, is a Dickens send-up, a Charles Dickens send-up, not Peter Dickinson, the voiceover artist, or any other Dickens. What the Dickens am I on about? Anyway, we'll get to that in just a mo. Are you well, Mr. Shane?
Yeah, I'm good. Yeah, I'm good, thank you. Just a quick one. I just wanted to let everybody know that we do follow up with our homework and take this seriously. We reviewed Please Like a couple of weeks ago. One of the ones from series 1, didn't we? And I was just saying to you that I'd watched the second series. And found it not as good as the first. So there you go.
That's a shame.
Yeah, I was a bit really disappointed because I'd loved the cast with that, and I thought, this would be great. And it was very similar to series 1, to be fair. So
right,
but even when we're not doing this, I'm still watching comedy.
That is a man taking comedy very seriously, which is a little bit paradoxical if you think about it. But people working in comedy have to take it seriously. I, for my part, went to another episode, not a whole series. I'm not as voracious as you or as efficient, but I tried out another Party.
Oh, right.
Which was rather nice. Yeah. So, Radio 4 comedy we slabbed the other week. Just called Party. It's about a bunch of 5 people putting together a political party.
How'd you find that?
And thoroughly enjoyed it. But, very consistent, unlike your experience with the change of series. I do admire writers who can churn out series after series, and eventually they, to use the phrase, they jump the shark very often. Phrase as we've discussed in much earlier slabs, originally from Happy Days, isn't it?
Yeah, I was lucky enough to meet Henry Winkler and interview him actually.
I thought you were going to say you met the shark that you jumped over.
The shark had long passed off this life and gone on to I don't know, the tuna farm somewhere in heaven.
Shark fin soup in the sky.
Yeah.
Fins ain't what they used to be. Eh?
But what a hell of a guy, Henry Winkler.
Yeah.
What a guy. And that many years after doing Happy Days and the Fonz, he never batted an eyelid or seemed to mind. If he did, he certainly let on when people walked up to him and went, "Hey," and put their thumbs up. Do you know, it's like a bit like the Victor Meldrew thing in Father Ted, where Dougal, Ted says, I'm going to go up to him, I'm going to go, I don't believe it, he'll love it. And Dougal says,
because no one has ever thought to do that.
Yeah, why do you do that?
Brilliant idea.
And all you see in the distance is Richard Wilson attacking Father Ted.
Love it.
And with the same thing with Henry Winkler, I thought, oh God, he's going to kill him, But no, look, what a lovely guy, really nice guy.
Well, I've been on the receiving end of that. Talking of lovely guys, it's much easier and more legally safe to talk about people who take these things well. I was referencing. I'm sorry, it's another EastEnders reference, but I was on the exotic location of the seafront of Leigh-on-Sea in Essex with EastEnders some years back. Bill Treacher playing Arthur Fowler.
Do you know they're showing all these again, don't you?
Did you reference that last time? I can't remember.
I don't think
I don't seek
yesterday.
them out. I'll do it if someone pays me to watch them, which is what they did first time round, but I won't... I was working on it.
I just think maybe a nice nostalgia trip for you if you watched them. I don't know.
I
often think I must send you a WhatsApp message and tell you that they're showing them, but it's that era as well, Bill Treacher and...
Oh, right. I mean, okay, that would be fond memories of him, but the show's not known for being particularly upbeat. I suppose he had his comedic moments, and 1 or 2 characters did. But I don't know, the phrase life is short comes to mind, having lived through it once.
Yeah.
With all due respect to the cast and everyone else working on it, and the people who love it, what are they called? Viewers. Oh, yes. Anyway, so we're on location, and sure enough, it's exactly like the anecdote with Mr. Winkler. Every 30 seconds, someone's saying, "Arthur, all right."
Yeah.
And every time, as if it was the first time he'd heard it, he put his thumb up, he courteously acknowledged them. He might even have done a little something in character. Absolutely gracious to a fault. Absolute delight to work with.
Yeah, I think a lot of people get that, don't they? It's like, I remember asking this question of people who were famous for one thing or whatever, and you'd say, wasn't that a bit of an albatross for you? And 9 times out of 10, they'd say, well, no, that was what made my name. That was why would I be upset if people came up and said that? Because that was how I became a household name rather than just another job in actors. So I kind of get it, really.
You somehow suspect, for some of them, in the dead of the night, if it happens,
they wake up screaming.
Well, Stephen Mangan was at least honest enough to say, when someone goes up to him, him having been in an Alan Partridge show, and someone goes, Dan, Dan.
Yeah.
And of course they won't stop, because that's the point of the gag in the original show. When he played Dan, he said there were occasions, and you kind of read between the lines, if he'd had a bad day, he wasn't most entertained. But I respect that, join the dots and let the man off, he's only human.
Anyway, you chose last week, as you mentioned at the top of the podcast this week.
Many hours ago,
Bleak Expectations, which we both were aware of, weren't we? I mean, this hasn't come as a shock to either of us, has it?
No, and I knew it would be good. It would be a bit masochistic to choose the show that I knowingly didn't like. But I tell you, my confession with it, and it's a delight actually to slab it properly, where we put it on the slab for the benefit of new listeners. And we dissect a different show each week, and we take it in turns to set each other homework, as well as sharing it with you. And you made it clear that you were quite fond of the show yourself.
Big fan, yeah.
We'll find out how. Oh, right. Okay, brilliant. We'll get into some detail in a mo, and 3 audio clips to come. But my feeling was I'd never done it justice, because I've just got a memory of numerous times being either cooking in the kitchen, which is always the best place to cook, I reckon, or washing up, likewise in the kitchen, usually, and hearing it, enjoying it, but never hearing a complete episode beginning to end, and never actually getting the full value out of it, but loving the bits I heard.
Right.
And you put a kettle on to boil some water for pasta or something, and it's, hey, what's going on? Oh, I missed that bit.
Yeah, I do that all the while with audiobooks, and then the kettle finishes boiling, and then the narrator will say, and that's at the point where I stoved his head in. And you think, who? What? When did it? What? I missed that. You have to go back again, though, don't you? Although on the iPhone, on the audio player for that, there's a handy plays the last 30 seconds button, isn't
it?
Yes.
Nice
I use that about 4
function.
times. Yeah, go back the last 30 seconds. But yeah, you're right. Interesting, because conversely for me, I remember the first time I heard it, I think was in the car radio, probably coming home from work. And then subsequent to that, I bought the audio and had it on an iPod, and so listened far more intently by the sound of it.
Right, and I'm sure that kind of answers one of the questions they can quite get round to researching. It is available still as a download, isn't it?
I would have thought so, yeah.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sure I've seen a CD cover as well. I know that's a bit old school, but anyway, what we're talking about is available as we speak, at least. It depends when you're listening to this, dear listener, but available in the UK and on a BBC Sounds app, should be available throughout the world, as far as I know. For the next 2-3 weeks, thereabouts. So that's why I chose this episode, which is Series 5, and that was, in fact, the last series. Chapter the Second, as they rather quaintly call it. Bless them. Because it's all Charles Dickens send-up, but other send-ups thrown in, and some delightful anachronisms, sort of modernisms thrown in as well. So without further ado, let's get to clip number 1. How can I set this up? Well, you might need to help me with this, because I've still got part of my sort of washing up and cooking brain across this, but I've been running to keep up with. There's things I've only learnt in the last couple of hours about the show, even though what we're hearing went out a few years ago initially. But essentially, the setup is, if you're familiar with Great Expectations, you'll be familiar with the central character, Philip Pirrip, otherwise known as Pip. Well, it's kind of send-up of Pip. But this Pip actually invented the bin. I only learnt that this afternoon. You never hear that referenced. Well, I hadn't heard it.
He's the world's richest man, isn't it? Well, that's the point, is that in order to pick up some of those nuanced references, you would have to listen quite religiously, wouldn't you, I think?
To every series and every episode, I think. Yeah. But we won't go into the depths of it. You can catch up with it as much as you wish to. But to set up this first clip, so our narrator is Pip, but older Pip, but we then hear young. Well, actually, we're not going to hear the younger Pip in this clip, are we? Pip in the clip. See, I've already lost myself. We are hearing his daughter, Pippa. Yes, with her man. Oh gosh, what's his name? Remind me his name.
Is this the one? This one with Harry Biscuit? Is it?
Yes, it's Harry. Harry
or
is
Harry? That's
no. Or is it? God, Sour Quill. Isn't it the Sour Quills?
I think we stumbled almost semi-accidentally on one of the issues with.
Yes,
with this as a series, but more of that a bit later on.
Yes, there are quite a few characters crammed into a small space, but anyway,
and they're quite interrelated as well, aren't they? Is the other thing as well. Anthony Head is Sour Quill, isn't he?
Right, I've got this wrong because you've written this out. I've seen the cue into it. It's his son and daughter-in-law. Not, I got it the wrong way around. But there's a son-in-law and a daughter, but in a elsewhere.
Yeah.
Anyway, so his son and daughter-in-law, they have this reputation for being late, and so let's hear from Pip the elder, first of all, the older version of Pip, setting the scene indeed about this lateness and what their excuse is this time.
My accursed son-in-law and daughter are late again, so I am now. Fractious, fuming, and so hot under the collar that my tie has melted.
Mr. and Mrs. Sarkles.
Late again.
Is my poor father Wather crossy-wossy?
No, he is furious and libbity-wibbity.
Our apologies. We tried to be on time by buying this great aunt clock.
Great aunt clock?
Like a grandfather clock, but bossier. Where the former dispenses toffees on the hour, this administers a sharp slap. Ow!
I like it. But then why are you still late?
Well, knowing we are habitually 15 minutes late, I cleverly set the clock forward by that much to fool us into being on time.
Alas, I had the same idea, and also put it 15 minutes forward.
And double alas, I forgot I had done so, had the idea again, and set it a further 15 minutes forward.
As did I.
And I again.
Indeed, between us, we did the same thing 96 times. Thereby actually setting it to the correct time, and thus we are our usual 15 minutes late.
And again, you see, that's something that you would know if you'd listened and take notes and passed the test at the end of each series, that it's a running gag that they're always late, and the reason that they're always late is more and more convoluted as time goes on, kind of thing, hence the reason that they changed the clock 96 times and actually set it to the correct time, and then there were still 15 minutes late, which I do like. I mean, it's like it's one of those that you kind of, if you were telling it to a bunch of children as a story, you would have to say at the start, now pay attention, children, because it does require that, doesn't it? Don't you think?
Oh yeah.
And as you rightly say, because it's a small ensemble that play all of the characters, it can get very confusing as to who is which character. And Anthony Head, for example, plays two characters in every episode. He plays a good character and a bad character. And when I first used to listen to it, I didn't kind of clock what was happening with that, and I didn't understand. I think, well, that's Anthony Head. I recognise his voice, kind of thing. Why is he two characters? What's it? So it can be quite confusing, and that is one of my criticisms. Did you find the same as well? That it's a bit.
Yeah, I mean, I did. I shouldn't feel so comforted that you struggled as well, but I'm aware I have what I've claimed previously to be called plot blindness or plot deafness. Sometimes I can get lost quite easily. It doesn't help, having been distracted by the kettle all those years ago while I was cooking and not fully hearing and digesting everything. And also, it's not taking any prisoners. It's not helping you if you've just dived into Series 5 and you haven't heard Series 1 to 4.
Yeah.
I mean, this is the difficulty we're having explaining to you, dear listener, if you're not familiar with the show at all. But we wouldn't want to put you off. There's some absolutely delightful lines in it, and it's joyous. I know that's an old-fashioned word, but hey, it's an old-fashioned show in a way. So it's worth sticking with, but it's almost like you need a parallel, the equivalent of what a big tome would have some footnotes.
Yeah.
Really, you need some audio footnotes.
I do wonder whether that's what it suffers from, is that when the guy who wrote it, Mark Evans, when he sat down to write it, that when he's written it on the page, it is a lot easier to follow than it would be as a radio production. And I wonder whether now it's really weird actually, because he's actually written a book of the series.
Yes, I haven't seen that. Have you seen any of that? Or-
I've got it as an audio book, and I just haven't got around to listening to it yet.
Right.
But yeah, I'm not really quite sure how that would work either with, either if you read it or whether there's just like one narrator reading the book. I wonder whether that'll make the whole thing easy. I'm not really quite sure about that one, but
I think that should be a second parallel piece of homework for your next week, in addition to whatever you set me to research.
what a nightmare. and I think the thing, and it's one of those, how sometimes you kind of, and it's like I was saying to you just before we started recording about Please Like, that I found that Series 2 was very similar to Series 1. And I think this is, but it also isn't. And I think one of the reasons that it is, or one of the benefits of it being so convoluted at times, is that it does make it differentiate from the previous episodes in the series.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because the plot is so convoluted a lot of the time, and deliberately so, just so it's like ridiculous. In fact, there was a part in this, and I can't remember what it was now. That one clip we just heard with the 96 times, and I started thinking, would that work? Is that 96?
Yeah,
number?
I did the math. 24 times 4 for a quarter of an hour, is it?
Yeah.
I think that stacks up.
But then I kind of think, oh, shut up, brain, and then carry on listening to it. So
I like the way your brain is telling your brain to shut up.
I think it's the two halves don't get on. I think that's what it is.
Yeah. Well, my brain's got a mind of its own. That's the strange thing.
Yeah.
But I don't know who said that. Which half said that?
I have to say though, for me, I mean, the saving grace with all of this, as with a lot of things that we review, is cast. Don't you think?
Yeah. Oh, beautiful performances. I was so sad. This is how behind the curve I am. I didn't realise, bless him, we've lost Richard Johnson, who plays the elder, the old version of Pip.
Yeah.
I mean, you can hear his experience, and it's exactly what you want, isn't it? A good, rich, crusty voice that's lived a bit. I had no idea. He was in his 80s when he recorded this, for goodness sake.
Have you seen
fantastic.
his body of work as well? He's like, if you go on the Internet Movie Database.
Oh, it's just phenomenal, isn't it? I had a quick wiki look.
Kitchen Roll, isn't it? It goes on forever.
Oh,
it's just...
yeah. And one of those super bumper economy family special kitchen rolls as well.
But
Three
they're all
ply.
with extra thickness, extra absorbent. Not one sheet.
Although the pattern makes it strangely illegible. Pray continue.
I was going to say, but you've got him, you've got Geoffrey Whitehead, another juggernaut of the acting world, isn't he? I mean, he's done some fabulous stuff. He's done a lot of radio. I mean, he goes back so far. His first ever TV was Z Cars, believe it or not.
God.
And two jobs after Z Cars. You know what he was in?
I'm just looking. Some others do have
some
them.
others do have them.
Scene
so that was
brilliant.
his first foray into comedy within like three three jobs that he had.
That's not a bad start to a career, is it?
You got Anthony Head, who was in Buffy the Vampire Slayer, wasn't he? That's where he kind of made it big.
Right.
I don't know what the character was. Don't ask me because I never watched it. And Sarah Hadland, who I think is one of those actresses who you kind of think, oh yeah, she's another part actress, another bit part actress or whatever. But fantastic talent. I looked her up. She learned to dance at Lane, which I'm reliably informed by my wife is one of the top dance schools to go to. Right. And her first job out of Lane, I think, was Cats, where she's often said to me, if you're one of the top dancers in the country, you'll get into Cats, otherwise forget it, because it's all about the dance. So
Gosh.
A really accomplished woman in the field of dance, now gone into acting, and I mean, you look at them together and
yeah.
You think they're an amazing crew, aren't they? Really amazing cast.
Absolutely. It is time, I think, for a second clip. We should say the story takes them to India.
God help us after the first one. Go on.
Oh, but this, yeah, exactly. Do you know, I've got this theory. Mark Evans studied classics at Cambridge, for goodness sakes. I think it's possible to be too clever.
Yeah.
And maybe some elements of this are too clever. But then he still likes a good old-fashioned, fart gag or whatever. And
what's his knob gag in it, as what Ben Elton would say, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. He's not afraid of something. There's a running gag about thwarting and all the words that sound like thwart, like, tonic thwarter or whatever it is, sparkling mineral thwarter and thwart, do you think of that? Anyway, I digress. They head off to India. So there's some nice little asides about the British Empire and hurrah for the Empire and all of that sort of stuff. Without giving too much away, because I think we're going to get a degree of explanation in this clip, we're about to confront a rather frightening creature in the wilds of India.
Where are all the villagers?
Probably frightened away by this gigantic, terrifying snake.
For indeed, a massive serpent had slithered into view, and now reared furiously before us.
Is it a spitting cobra?
Alas, worse.
A gobbing viper?
Worse yet.
A phlegm adder?
It is a mucus mamba. Its venom will give you a really annoying cold for the rest of your life,
That's not so bad.
which will be about 3 minutes long.
That is so bad.
I would fight it, but my two martial skills are arm wrestling and shin kicking. Useless against snakes.
I know how to deal with this.
Harry crouched in front of the snake.
Hello, Mr. Snake. You look well. Have you lost weight? Love what you've done with your lack of hair. And those stripes are so slimming.
I see your friend is a snake charmer.
Do you know the only one was missing was that they didn't say, oh, it's on a motor carriage, it must be a windscreen viper. Out of all those snake gags. Do you know, you could see those snake gags coming from about 100 yards away, couldn't you? And do you know what? I didn't care. I just
you enjoy
loved
the
it.
ride, don't you?
Yeah, the snake charmer at the end, and I thought, I know exactly what's coming here. But you get carried. You're right. You're carried along, and you enjoy the ride. I think that's the best way to describe it. So, just so people are clear on who, so that's the younger Pip. That's like a kind of flashback, isn't it, within the episode, isn't it?
Yes, I mean it's effectively, the older Pip is narrating his adventures as a young man to journalist Sourquill.
It's Tom Allen. Do you know Tom Allen? Tom Allen, who plays young Pip, and he has done bucket loads of stuff. And I wouldn't know him if he bit me on the bum in the lift. I have no. Why don't I know him? Why am I not aware of his work?
I suggest you would learn pretty quickly if he did bite you on the bum in the lift.
Oh, I'd know afterwards, obviously. I mean, that's as they say.
You'd know by the teeth marks. You could check his dental records, but anything else.
Yeah. Did you know him? Were you aware?
No. But I see. I'm hiding behind your coattails because I don't think I have quite the repertoire of knowing actors, at least by names alone. That a lot of people do. And I don't watch an awful lot of telly. So I'm busy, as we speak, trying to see if I can find a photo of him. But Mr. or Ms. Wiki has not come up trumps here. What's he best known for? I'm quickly scrolling through.
This probably for me.
Right.
I don't know. Do you know, I've not got the list of the stuff that he's done, but I looked at it and I thought, I mean, he's had small parts in most everything, comedy-wise.
He's got his teeth into several roles, you might say.
Yeah, but I just wonder why I'd never, like James Bachman, for example. I knew him for the stuff that he'd done. I mean, he was in Saxondale. He was in. I didn't. You ever watch Saxondale, did you? You didn't. The Steve Coogan thing.
Didn't float my boat. I mean, I was a bit guilty of judging it on the first 5 minutes or something, and I just didn't work for me. But I'm such a Partridge fan, I didn't see where Coogan could go next, really. But.
Well, he used to. James Bachman was in Saxondale's anger management group. And I mean, you know, a more inoffensive guy, you couldn't wish to. He was like a very quiet and meek sort of thing. You think, well, why is he doing that? But he's been he's been in all sorts. He's worked with Mitchell and Webb a lot. He's been in The Mighty Boosh. He's been in 5 Stories High. He's done tons of stuff. You know, so I knew him, and I kind of knew the name. And you know, he's the guy that plays Harry Biscuit. Harry Biscuit's a little bit slow, isn't he? He's
yes, and I didn't realise until I looked it up. He's modelled on, and virtually the only Dickens I've ever read was what I had to read with a gun to my head for O-level, which of course dates me. It was, I think the print was still damp, it's so long ago. But anyway, he's kind of modelled on happy-go-lucky Herbert Pocket from Great Expectations. Don't even remember that character, I confess. Oh, talking of 1970s shows, as we were earlier, did you see a connection between a very talented actress who does all those thwart gags? That is Pippa, isn't it? Played by
Susy Kane.
Susy Kane.
Yeah.
Her dad created and wrote Terry and June.
No.
Classic sitcom, according to Wiki, if that's to be trusted. Yeah.
Which a lot of people hate on, don't they? I mean, if you're listening internationally to this podcast, this was a 1970s sitcom about a couple who lived in suburbia and generally got into scrapes with Terry's boss, and June saved the day, or they had problems with the neighbours or whatever. It was a very kind of innocuous sort of thing. But a lot of people really hated it. And when alternative comedy came along, I think that was one of the main targets, wasn't it? That kind of nice sitcom. I never really had that much of a problem with it, I'll be honest with you.
No, well, my claim to fame was that Terry Scott, thank you, was educated just up the road from me. He's a Watford Fields lad, which is just at the bottom of Watford High Street.
Oh, right.
Yeah, that's very tenuous, I'll grant you. But yeah, I watched it, and I just remember an episode with a dust cart or something, and yeah, it was gentle and fairly predictable by today's standards. But people don't judge it by the standards of when it was out. It's part of the school of what I call the ding dong, I'm home, darling, did you have a good day, dear, sort of sitcom. Just a classic family sitcom, wasn't it?
It's interesting though. We mentioned Some Others Do Have Them with Michael Crawford a bit earlier on, and they were kind of the same era. But Some Others Do Have Them. Oh, it was the work of a genius. But I think that's in people's memories, because if you watch back and you look at Some Others Do Have Them, it was at times as ropey and under-rehearsed as, other. I watched an episode of On the Buses today, which
I hate you, Butler,
and they just all fell over their lines. It was incredible. Yeah, but I think it's because you're watching a recording of a live performance.
Yeah, and they didn't have the editing software in them days.
No, they were lucky if they had a camera between them, to be honest with you. But
yeah, the actor had to turn around to present different angles instead of the camera moving or cutting. Yeah. Right, how are we doing? It must be nearly time for clip number 3. Gosh, sorry, just reading your cues here. I have heard it, but... oh, yes, nice little gag here. Have you got the deets in front of you, Shane?
Yeah, I mean, this is essentially, and we were talking about Harry Biscuit and about how he kind of gets himself into problems, and they believed that he got himself into, I suppose, what you call the ultimate problem. They believed that he died.
He's fallen off a cliff or something.
That's it, yeah. Which I always love, because like on the radio, it's like kind of thing. You love that. So I love that kind of the overdone, the stupid, kind of effect on radio. I think it always works really well in comedy. It always takes me back to and I think this lends, I don't know what you think, but this lends a lot from The Goons or Round the Horn. It's got that kind of feel to it, I think.
I'll tell you what I think in terms of genre, just before we get into clip 3.
Yeah.
It makes me think of Panto. It's that delightful, joyous, it's cheesy in a way, but you throw yourself into it and go with it.
Do you not hear echoes of The Goons or like I say, or what was the other one I mentioned? The
Goodies.
No, the Round the Horn, Kenneth
Round
Horn.
The Horn. I'm obviously aware of those shows. I don't think I gorge on them as voraciously as you have done. Certainly there's some spirit of that, but equally you could say Monty Python, but equally Monty Python feeds off The Goons. It's a great sort of English/British tradition, isn't it? So yeah, it's definitely in there, but it's also, there's tons of wordplay and puns and all of that, and but with these large performances and great crusty character actors, as you've kind of alluded to earlier, it really does make it. It is a delight.
Anyway, so
all of which is me avoiding setting this up because
well, Harry Biscuit, is he dead or isn't he dead? I mean, that's the question.
I hear my poor husband from beyond the grave.
No, I'm just beyond the window.
We rushed to look and saw Harry dangling only some 20 feet down the deadly drop, clinging to the tail of the mucous mamba he had charmed back in the village. The snake had saved him.
So loyal snakes, like bald, limbless Labradors.
Hurrah for Harry and the snake!
Relief flooded like happy brandy into the decanter of my soul. Harry was alive. But so was my nemesis. And there was much thwarting yet to be done. Like, loads.
So, what happened then?
That is for next time.
Oh, go on, tell me now.
Only if you strip naked and dance like a little girl.
Dancey, dancey, dance.
Now will you tell me?
No. But that was interesting.
That certainly was interesting. And I don't think you could do that on TV, or you wouldn't get the full nudity if they wanted to put it out before 9 o'clock. But that does very neatly, or actually quite messily.
I just wanted to say, rather, the thing I love on the radio where he goes, dancey, dancey, dancey.
You could picture it, though, couldn't you?
I just love that. It's just awesome.
Also, much earlier, we had, was it Pippa being taken away by the fastest form of transport in the Victorian era, which was, of course, hot air balloon, ... led by Siberian geese. Yeah. I mean, that would be quite expensive to do on film or TV. But there was
CGI it now, though, wouldn't they?
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's become affordable, but even so, quite an ask, and possibly for all the work you do on it, not as effective as it is on the radio. Nothing can quite compete with your imagination.
I think you're right, and I think, and also it kind of leaving it to the imagination is more powerful, isn't it? I think it's that the way they use the sound effects in it, it all kind of. There was one they did earlier in the episode, and he said something about having a swimming costume on, and he said, yeah, but over your suit, and
exactly.
and like you say, that kind of, you can only do that on radio. That's the radio only gag, isn't it? It's exclusive in that way.
Yes, absolutely. Anyway, I remember thinking, coming back to me listening to this in the kitchen a few years ago on Radio 4, and this one, by the way, has been repeated from BBC Radio 4 Extra, the archive station. I remember thinking, I bet this has to become a TV series. And I was confident it was going to be a big hit TV series, or series is running to a number of series, and I assumed it, in my imagination, took flight and or failed to, I don't know, but I imagined it being the same title. Why would you change Bleak Expectations? Beautiful title. It does what it says on the tin. You called it a mashup last week. You're in for a Dickens send-up if all you know of Charles Dickens, the novelist, is a couple of titles of his books. But sure enough, TV comes along, the juggernaut that it is. A lot of things were the same, but a lot of things were different, and the title certainly was different. The Bleak Old Shop of Stuff. Again, if you know anything about Dickens, it's the curiosity shop and all of that, and it's a reference to that. But I confess I haven't seen a whole episode of that, but what I've seen, I don't know, I think it's lost some of the innocence and charm. Yes, they wheel on the big names, and Robert Webb is always welcome on my TV. Yeah. But why would you change something that's already working? The cast as an ensemble cast works so well on the radio.
Well, it's interesting because you said last week about we start to notice who works with who. You notice who the little groups are of people that work together. And there's the James Bachman, Sarah Hadland connection. They both work with Mitchell and Webb. And so I guess that's where the connection came in with there. But you're right. I mean, and you won't say it because you've straddled both genres and you're far more polite than I am. But what you want to say is, I feel, this is certainly, I don't want to put words in your mouth. This is what I feel. TV ruined it. They completely muffed it up. They had a golden opportunity And they wrecked it. They only did 3 episodes as well, didn't they? What they didn't
Did
do
they? Another of those half series that we talked about.
They didn't
before.
even commit to a full series, and you kind of think now the title is and you hit the nail on the head. They had a fantastic title there. The only thing I can think is that they were worried about upsetting their traditional viewers who watch their adaptations.
Oh, the expensive costume
Yeah,
dramas.
costume dramas, great.
But that's exactly the point, isn't it? And I don't think it would upset them. You either get it or you don't. But
talk about ruining taking a great idea. It's like what is it that phrase? Snatching victory from the jaws of defeat. They did exactly the opposite. Snatched defeat from the jaws of victory. It was all there laid out for them, and they just blew it big time. I don't know. It
You're
just
feeling
blows
this
my
passionately,
mind.
aren't you?
Yeah, because again, being a big fan of it, you kind of think, you fully expect that you might not like it 100%. You might prefer the radio version. I guess I probably would anyway. But when they make such a ham-fisted, half-hearted attempt at it, I do find that a little bit offensive, really.
So, I've just dabbled on the YouTube and found bits and pieces, and I've just got a gut feeling. Have you managed to see, or did you, when they went out, see whole episodes?
Yeah, I've watched the whole. And by the way, when you dabble on the YouTube, don't forget to clear your internet history. I've told you about that.
Dabbler.
You're dabbler. I can't help it. Sorry, I'm a dabbler. 1, 2, 3. I've got it somewhere. I think. Yeah, I think I recorded it. I think I'm sure I've got it somewhere.
See, I wonder if it's again TV sort of having too much swagger and arguably too much money, or at least sounds to me like they blew all their budget on the first 3 episodes, and I probably didn't happen that way, but because they would have known what their budget was. But it feels like, all right, well, okay, it's been on the radio. All we need to do is bring in some bigger names, bring in a bigger audience, bish, bash, bosh. But here's the thing. I am impressed by, huge respect to Gareth Edwards, who's the producer of the radio show we're talking about, but also, unusually, in my experience, went across to TV and he produced this other one. So not many producers straddle TV and radio, to my knowledge, not normally. But I wouldn't want to lay the blame at his feet. There's so many different forces, and that's the trouble with TV very often. It's government by committee. Because there's more money, more people want to chip in with their views.
I'd love to know what goes on with this. I like the phrase you coined there, the half series. I'd love to know what goes on. I think we've talked about this before. What goes on? Is that a vote of no confidence? Is that a lack of commitment to resources and cash? I don't know. I can't imagine, unless you don't have the material, which I find really hard to believe, given that he's written 5 series, that Mark Evans wouldn't be able to knock up a set of 6 for 6.5 hours for a.
No, I think that's unthinkable. Yeah,
can't be that, can it? So I kind of think, like you say, I think the only thing that I come to the conclusion, probably the same as you, that it is politically driven rather than artistically driven.
And that's where it goes wrong. Yeah,
such a shame. It really is, because it could have been. I think it could have been a. And because the problem is, once you've done that, nobody will touch it now. Once you've done a half-hearted stab at 3, nobody's going to give it a go, are they? Really? So.
It's unlikely. I suppose there are probably exceptions out there. Very different to theatre, where, of course, a play can be revived. It can be, Stephen Sondheim's rewritten some of his original company is running in the West End, I think, as we speak. He's changed the sex and indeed the sexual orientation of his central characters. So, theatre's not afraid to go back to something, revive it, rework it, or of course it can move to another town. It can go around the world. It can do all sorts of things. But yeah, TV, that's your lot, mate. Usually, as you say.
I've said to somebody, I kind of who I was interviewing, I said, it's Stephen Sondheim hates these kind of what he calls jukebox musicals. And I wish I could remember who it was, but they said, I think you'll find that Stephen Sondheim hates anything that he hasn't written.
Actually, to be totally fair, He's quite critical of his own stuff.
Yeah.
But what I like about him is he's so thoughtful and dare one say analytical, but in an artistic, analytical way.
Yeah.
I think we should get him on the Slab one day, but not, to help us out with the analysis.
Talking about music, by the way, just a quick one, because I was going to say I wanted to mention the intro music. Which is Elgar, isn't it?
Yeah, I didn't realise. I in my ignorance, I should know more Elgar. I should know more classical generally, but I wondered whether it was specially written.
Which I thought was. I always thought it was actually. I always thought it was suspicious.
It does work though, doesn't it?
Oh, excellently. But what did you think about the musical, like what I would call a musical, like underscore that goes through? Did that irritate you, or did you like that?
Well, a leading question. Interesting you raised that. I had thoughts to raise it, and you got there first. There were times, and I think it's partly that could come down to money because it hasn't been specially scored, as far as I know, or I'm not sure what is the music that's under them, the orchestral music that's under them. But no, I found it obtrusive at times. And the thing is, if it was a movie, that is one case where I think having more money can work, because you'd say to your composer, it would be specially composed, you say, oh, can we have a light sort of soft string sustained notes under this tension, and then build it, and then we'll go to crescendo between scenes, and then could you bring it down for 3 seconds, and then it would be dictated. It could be dictated second for second. Here it feels like someone's just slapped something on. And I know it won't be quite like that. I'm exaggerating for effect, but it doesn't sit there for me. I'm very fussy with music. I thought the sitar music, because of course we're in India, that did work, because the nature of sitar music is it does sit better under dialogue, because it's not sort of spiky and themey. It's more atmospheric.
Although I thought the mixing was good. I mean, it wasn't. You're right. It kind of at times it kind of clanked into the scenes. I felt, but I didn't think it was like, oh, turn that flaming music down because I can't hear what's going on, sort of thing. So it was suitably underneath, wasn't it? It was suitably underscored in that sense. But there you go. Time to give it a number, isn't it? I think. Yeah.
Well, if it was, and it isn't, but if I was just marking the writing alone, I think I'd probably blow all 5 stars on Mark Evans's fantastic script. It's so multi-layered, so generous. Just when you think you've laughed all you can at a gag, he'll tag something on. It's called a tag in the biz, where you think the joke is finished and there's another punchline. It's so generous in that sense. Unfortunately, with 1 or 2 concerns, but only relatively slight, I have to reduce my overall mark to a still very generous, and certainly for me, 4.5. I think it's got to be.
Oh, 4.5. So you're just necked ahead of me. I was going to say 4.5, but I think all told, because of the complexity of it and because of the difficult nature of it following, and the fact that, and I kind of know why he's used one actor to do more than one part. I think on radio that doesn't you can't always pull that off, kind of thing. For clarity, I mean, there was really no reason why Anthony Head should play Mr Gently Benevolent and Sourquill, because that is just confusing, really. There's no connection between the characters. So anyway, a long-winded way of saying I'll give it a 4. So 8.5.
That's not bad at all.
That's very, very respectable.
I think it does come recommended. 1 or 2 niggles, but the thing with a lot of shows is it comes down for me to is its heart in the right place, and it's a massive affirmative yes with that show. And you can hear the crowd. My word, I mean, I suspect they've been with it since series 1.
Yeah,
they are playing to the home team, aren't they?
They sounded like an audience that had queued for a very long time.
Possibly waited 5 years for their ticket.
In order to get tickets to make sure that they got into. And actually, it was. Did you see where it was recorded?
I assumed it was Radio Theatre, but you didn't tell me I'm wrong.
Yeah, it was Radio Theatre, which
good.
Which again has got its own heritage, and I see they're following a few hallowed footsteps of comedy programmes that have been recorded there, don't they?
Yeah, just a bit.
Anyway, so 8.5. Like I say, on the description and all the rest of it, wherever you're listening to this, if you're listening on the podcast or you're listening on YouTube, we always do put a link in, so you'll be able to find at least some episodes, hopefully, of this example. But go out and buy it. Go and give Mark Evans a few quid. Go out and buy it and line his pockets.
Oh, yeah.
You know,
they've earned it.
He's worked hard on this, hasn't he? Really. So, as you say, I think it's well worth a listen. Comes highly recommended. Time to choose something for us to do for next week. Then, it's my turn again, isn't it?
It's your turn. Yes. Are you prepped?
Well, do you know what I'm going to do? Because you were saying about, I wouldn't choose something that I didn't like. I'm going to leap off. I think for the both of us, I think we're both going to Thelma and Louise style. I think we're going to
into the unknown. Is it?
Hold hands and leaping off the edge of the cliff. Yeah.
What, is this a suicide pact?
And you thought, well, I've made some sandwiches, so it's a suicide pact.
We might not be. Oh, my word. Give that to Mark Evans, see what he does with it.
So we're going to leap off the cliff, but don't worry, because we're leaping straight into the arms. You're going to say you've seen this now.
The loving arms?
Lee and Dean. Have you heard of Lee and Dean?
No. Is that one person or a double act?
Yeah, Lee and Dean. I think, from what I can gather, because I've never seen it, I think they're two builders.
Right. These are characters?
Yes.
Okay.
I think, again, I get the impression it's in the vein of, do you remember Lee and Lance that Harry Enfield and Paul Whitehead used to do?
I should know them. I don't know them by that name. What style of character were they?
Well, they used to be Lee or Lance. I can't remember which one. The Paul Whitehead's character was really dim, and Harry Enfield's was quite sharp. And they were plumbers variously. They were builders. They were mechanics. Paul Whitehead's character at one stage he made a coat hanger out of a car aerial. Because he got it the wrong way around, sort of thing. So you get the idea with that one. But yeah, I mean, all I can tell you is, and it won't take very long to explain what I know. I know that they're two characters. I don't know the actors who play them, and I know it was on Channel 4, and I know it's still available on More 4 online if you want to catch up with it. And I think if we go for Series 1, Episode 1, I think we both get in at the ground floor and press the button at the same time, don't we then? Do you think?
Yeah, fine. To use a bricklaying analogy, we're, I suppose, laying the foundations, or they were laying the foundations.
Very good.
Fantastic. So it's L-E-E, is it?
L-E-E and D-E-A-N, Lee and Dean. Because if you say it quick, people think you're saying Lee and Dean and go, who's she?
Yeah, exactly.
No, not Lee and
She was a
Dean.
faded pop star.
Yes.
From the Midwest. Yes. Does country music. Okay, Lee and Dean, it'll be on the old Channel 4 app and More 4, as you say, and la la la. I
All 4 or whatever it's called this week.
Yeah. What is it all for?
Yeah.
Right, so just quickly on the social medias, we are at Comedy Slab, naturally enough, on Twitter. Do follow us there, and like our Facebook page, also at Comedy Slab.
And as I mentioned, you can get us on all of the usual outlets, the podcast outlets like Spreaker, iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts and the like. And there's also a kind of semi-visual version on YouTube as well. Same way to search. So until next time, thank you very much for listening. I'm going to take all my clothes off and dance naked. Dancey, 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 dancey.
Oh, did you have to? Interesting.